My name is Lyra. I'm 19, and for as long as I can remember, the soft glow of my older brother, Orion, has cast a long shadow over my own quiet existence. He's only a year my senior, but in the eyes of our parents, Serafina and Jasper, Orion was woven from sunlight and brilliance. He was their articulate star, captain of the debate team, charming his way through regional championships while I, with my sketchbook and quiet corners, was often an afterthought. My parents, bless them, never quite mastered the art of subtlety in their preference. I recall Orion's 16th birthday vividly. He'd expressed a casual interest in coding, and suddenly a top-of-the-line laptop appeared, along with enrollment in an expensive summer coding bootcamp. When my own 16th arrived a year later, I shyly mentioned wanting to explore digital art. I received a perfectly adequate, though second-hand, drawing tablet, a kind gesture, but one that whispered of different scales of investment. "It's a lovely hobby," dear mother had said, patting my hand, the unspoken comparison to Orion's promising future hanging in the air. I learned early to muffle the small pangs of disappointment with a smile. The one person who truly saw me, whose gaze wasn't filtered through Orion's brilliance, was my grandmother, Grandma Celia. Her home in the small, sun-dappled town of Mapleton was my sanctuary. She remembered my every quiet achievement, slipped me pocket money for art supplies, and, most importantly, promised she'd set aside funds for my college education. That promise became a tiny, flickering candle in the often dim hallway of my adolescence, guiding me through the pressures of my final school years. With a partial scholarship lightening the financial load, I was accepted into Stonebridge University in Riverbend, a city vibrant with old trees and new ideas, a welcome world away. I moved into a shared dormitory room, my heart aflutter with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. I anticipated Grandma Celia's promised support, expecting it to smooth the transition. But the weeks turned into a month, and no funds appeared. When I finally mustered the courage to ask Mother about it during a brief phone call, her voice crackled with an unexpected sharpness. "Lyra, how can you be so inconsiderate?" she'd exclaimed, the words like a sudden frost. "Grandma Celia is having some financial difficulties at the moment. You should be ashamed, expecting handouts. Why don't you find a part-time job instead of pestering us?" Her words stung, leaving a residue of guilt and confusion. So I did as she suggested. I found a quiet job shelving books at the university library, the scent of old paper and dust a strange comfort. It helped with essentials, and sometimes the kind head librarian, Mrs. Thorne, would share her lunch if I was working through a break. But it wasn't nearly enough. Soon, I added another responsibility: online tutoring for high school students struggling with literature, my evenings filled with Shakespeare and essay marking. Between my studies, the library shifts, and the late-night tutoring sessions, sleep became a luxury I could seldom afford. Even with 2 jobs, I was perpetually walking a financial tightrope. There were weeks the library had reduced hours due to budget cuts, or tutoring clients canceled last minute, and the gnawing ache of hunger became a too familiar companion. I remember one particular week, the library was closed for asbestos abatement. My tutoring income barely covered my share of the utilities. I nearly fainted in the quiet of my dorm room, dizziness blurring the edges of my vision. My roommate, Maya, a whirlwind of bright scarves and infectious laughter, found me pale and trembling. Without a word, she shared her grocery haul and pressed a $20 bill into my hand, her kindness a warm balm on my frayed nerves. When my aging art tablet, essential for my design minor, finally sputtered and died, I sat on my narrow dorm bed and wept, the frustration and helplessness overwhelming. It was more than just a piece of equipment. It was my connection to the one thing that made me feel wholly myself. Again, Maya was my savior. She called her parents and, with a quiet determination that belied her usual exuberance, secured a loan of $300 for me to purchase a replacement. I meticulously recorded every penny I owed her in a small, worn notebook, each entry a promise to repay her generosity. Meanwhile, according to my parents, Orion was conquering the academic world at a prestigious university several states away. He's so immersed in his advanced economics program, Father would say proudly during our infrequent calls, he barely has time to breathe, let alone visit. My own calls with Orion were brief, almost perfunctory. He'd sound distant, his replies to my questions about his studies vague and hurried. I pictured him in grand lecture halls, surrounded by equally ambitious peers, and felt a familiar twinge of inadequacy. This was the rhythm of my life, a delicate balance of study, work, and quiet yearning, until last weekend. It was Grandma Celia's 75th birthday, and I took an early morning bus back to Mapleton, the familiar countryside unfolding like a cherished memory. My wallet was painfully light after purchasing her gift, a small, pressed flower arrangement I'd carefully crafted and framed, the blossoms collected from the university gardens. When I arrived at Grandma Celia's rambling, wisteria-covered house, the celebration was already a gentle hum of conversation and laughter. My parents were there, of course, along with aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't seen in months. The only conspicuous absence was Orion. "Where's Orion?" I asked, giving Mother a quick, slightly stiff hug. "Oh, he's absolutely buried in exam preparations, darling," Father interjected smoothly, his smile a little too bright. "He sends his deepest love and regrets." Grandma Celia's dining table, draped in her signature lace tablecloth, was laden with food, more fragrant, colorful dishes than I had allowed myself to even dream of in months. My stomach gave a quiet rumble as I found a seat, trying to appear nonchalant as I filled my plate with small, careful portions. We began with toasts, a chorus of voices praising Grandma Celia's wisdom, her kindness, her unwavering support for all of us. As we ate, the conversation fragmented into smaller, more intimate clusters. I was savoring a spoonful of creamy mashed potatoes when my cousin Ethan, a kind-faced young man with perpetually curious eyes, looked at me from across the table. "Goodness, Lyra," he said, his voice carrying easily in a momentary lull, "you look like a whisper of yourself. Are you eating at all over there in Riverbend?" A flush crept up my neck. Before I could formulate a response, Mother chimed in with a light, dismissive laugh. "Oh, Ethan, you know these artistic types. So absorbed in their creative pursuits, they simply forget to eat. She's probably just on one of those newfangled, mindful eating kicks." I opened my mouth to gently correct her, to explain the reality of library sandwiches and skipped dinners, but Grandma Celia's voice, clear and steady, cut through the polite murmurs. "Ethan's right, Serafina. Lyra, you're too thin." Her eyes, usually sparkling with amusement, narrowed with a sudden, sharp concern. "Isn't the $1,000 I send you each month enough for proper food, child?" The delicate china fork slipped from my numb fingers, clattering loudly against my plate. The dining room, moments before filled with the cheerful sounds of a family gathering, fell into a profound, echoing silence. What money?" I managed, my voice a threadbare whisper that barely disturbed the heavy air. "Grandma Celia, I haven't received any money from you. Not a single cent since I started at Stonebridge University." The silence deepened, pressing in on me from all sides. Every eye in the room seemed to shift, a slow, collective swivel, from me to my parents, then back again. "Jasper, Serafina," Grandma Celia said, her voice dangerously calm, each word precise as she addressed my parents. "Perhaps you would care to illuminate this discrepancy?" Mother's lips trembled, her carefully composed expression crumbling. "Mother, it's a complicated family matter. Perhaps this isn't the appropriate time or place to discuss it." "I have nothing whatsoever to be ashamed of," Grandma Celia countered, her gaze unwavering. "Tell us, Serafina. Tell us all what you did with Lyra's allowance. And if you don't tell us the unvarnished truth, Right here and now, I assure you, my next call will be to the authorities. Mother burst into tears, a choked, hiccuping sound that filled the strained silence. Father cleared his throat, his gaze fixed on his intertwined hands resting on the pristine tablecloth. We've been using the money for Orion, he admitted, his voice low and strained. He has a problem with speculation. Online trading. He fell in with some persuasive people during his gap year, and it just escalated. We've tried everything, counselors, financial advisors. He promises to stop, but he keeps relapsing. As Father continued his halting explanation to Grandma Celia, a torrent of memories flooded my mind, each one a small, sharp shard of understanding. Orion's expensive coding camp, my second-hand tablet. His prestigious university, always too busy for visits. My parents' insistence that I be more self-reliant, more like him. My own gnawing hunger, the constant anxiety of unpaid bills, the belief that Grandma Celia, my one steadfast supporter, had somehow forgotten her promise. Grandma Celia's voice, firm and resolute, sliced through the heavy atmosphere. Everyone, please continue to enjoy the food and celebrate. This is a private matter. She rose from her chair, her face a mask of carefully controlled composure, though a tremor in her hand betrayed the storm within. Jasper, Serafina. My study. Now. My parents followed her without a word, their shoulders slumped, the very picture of admonished children. I sat frozen, the food on my plate suddenly tasteless, the surrounding chatter a distant, meaningless hum. Cousin Ethan placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Are you all right, Lyra?" he whispered. I couldn't manage even a nod. Excusing myself, I tiptoed into the hallway, drawn by an irresistible pull towards Grandma Celia's study. The heavy oak door was closed, and I pressed my ear against the cool wood, straining to decipher the muffled voices within. The tones were low, hushed, which was somehow more unnerving than shouting. I caught only fragments, years of deception. Grandma Celia's voice, cold as steel, only trying to protect him. Father's desperate, pleading tone, no justification. Grandma Celia again, unequivocal. I retreated to my seat, pushing a piece of untouched cake around my plate with my fork, my mind a maelstrom of shock and dawning, painful comprehension. 30 minutes later, an eternity, my parents emerged from the study. Mother's eyes were red-rimmed and swollen. They avoided eye contact with everyone, hastily collecting their coats and murmuring their goodbyes before slipping out into the afternoon sun, their departure leaving a palpable void. 5 minutes later, Grandma Celia returned, a faint, strained smile gracing her lips. "Now," she announced, her voice a little too bright, "who's ready for another slice of this delicious cake?" The party resumed, a fragile, awkward affair, the remaining guests valiantly attempting to ignore the monumental elephant that had taken up residence in the room. When the last relative had finally departed, leaving behind a quiet house filled with the scent of wilting flowers and leftover cake, Grandma Celia took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Lyra, dear," she said, her eyes searching mine, "I don't think you should go back to Riverbend tonight. Stay here with me for a few days." I nodded, a wave of profound relief washing over me. The thought of facing my parents, of being in the same house with them after this devastating revelation, made me feel physically ill. The next morning, sunlight streamed into Grandma Celia's cozy kitchen, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. She sat me down at the familiar wooden table, a steaming mug of herbal tea warming my hands. Her eyes were shadowed with fatigue, but her voice was steady, imbued with a gentle strength. "I need to tell you everything I learned from your parents yesterday," she began, her gaze direct and kind. "I never paid your or Orion's tuition fees directly to the institutions. I gave the money to Jasper and Serafina because I trusted them implicitly. Handling intricate bank transfers seemed overly complex at my age, a folly I now deeply regret." She took a slow sip of her tea, You received a substantial scholarship for Stonebridge University, a testament to your hard work. I had set aside $60,000 for your full 4-year education. Your scholarship reduced the actual cost to $30,000. They informed me the scholarship was minor and that the full amount was still required, plus additional, unforeseen administrative fees. They pocketed the remaining $30,000 and used it, like everything else, for Orion. My hands trembled around my mug, the warmth doing little to dispel the chill that had settled deep within me. There's more, Lyra. Grandma Celia's eyes held mine, unwavering. Orion never enrolled in any university. What? The teacup rattled in its saucer. But they always said, his economics program, the exams. After he finished school, Grandma Celia continued, her voice heavy with a sorrow that mirrored my own burgeoning disbelief. They sent him to a private skills development retreat in a quiet place called Clearwater. Their intention was to separate him from the influences that first led him to these speculative habits. They hoped a change of scenery, a fresh start, would set him on a better path. She shook her head, a small, sad gesture. It didn't. He found new acquaintances, equally drawn to high-risk ventures. So, all those times they spoke of his demanding schedule, his exam pressures, those were fabrications. I had also given them $50,000 for his supposed business degree. Grandma Celia's knuckles were white where she gripped her own mug. And then, of course, there was the monthly allowance I've been sending for you, $1,000 every month, for the past 20 months. Another $20,000 vanished into the same abyss. A wave of nausea washed over me. The numbers were staggering, but it was the depth of the betrayal, the years of calculated deceit, that truly took my breath away. I didn't know, I whispered. I genuinely believed Orion was at university. Whenever I visited Mapleton for holidays, he was always shut in his room, glued to his computer. I just assumed he was studying, engrossed in his coursework. He was trading online, Grandma Celia stated, her voice flat, devoid of inflection. Your parents have been frantically paying off his mounting debts, funding supposed investment opportunities that never materialized, arranging counseling sessions. Nothing, it seems, has had a lasting effect. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the cheerful pattern of the tablecloth. All this time, I've been working those 2 jobs. There were weeks I barely ate, Lyra. Maya, my roommate, she had to lend me money when my art tablet broke. I couldn't afford to replace it on my own. I know, my sweet girl. Grandma Celia reached across the table, her warm hand covering mine. And I am so profoundly sorry. I should have been more diligent. I should have checked in with you directly, not relied on intermediaries. What happens now? I asked, wiping a stray tear with the back of my hand. You continue your studies at Stonebridge University. That is your sole focus now. Her voice was firm, resolute. And from this day forward, I will transfer $1,800 directly into your bank account at the beginning of each month. No more go-betweens. No more uncertainty. I stayed with Grandma Celia for 3 more days. We talked for hours, not just about the painful revelations, but about my classes, my tentative friendships in Riverbend, my quiet dreams for a future I was only just beginning to imagine. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt truly heard, truly seen. My parents called Grandma Celia's landline several times, their voices urgent, pleading. Each time, Grandma Celia calmly informed them that I wasn't ready to speak. And I wasn't. I wasn't sure if I would ever be. When it was time for me to return to Riverbend, Grandma Celia drove me to the bus station. As we hugged goodbye, she pressed a thick envelope into my hand. An emergency fund, Lyra, she said, her eyes twinkling despite the gravity of our recent conversations. And don't you dare tell me you won't accept it. Back at Stonebridge University, the world felt subtly altered, as if a heavy filter had been lifted from my vision. The first thing I did was give my notice at the online tutoring service. With Grandma Celia's generous support, I could now dedicate my evenings to my studies and keep only my weekend shifts at the library, a place I'd grown to genuinely appreciate. I bought a few new, well-fitting clothes, stocked my small dormitory fridge with fresh fruit and yogurt, and, with a heart full of gratitude, repaid every last cent I owed to Maya. For the first time since stepping onto the Stonebridge University campus, I wasn't perpetually exhausted, hungry, or consumed by financial anxiety. My grades began to reflect this newfound peace, and I even found the courage to join a small art history study group, my contributions slowly growing more confident. It was like stepping out of a cramped, dimly lit room into a spacious, sunlit meadow. 2 months later, I was nestled in a quiet alcove of the university library, sketching ideas for a design project, when a familiar figure tapped me on the shoulder. I looked up, startled, into Grandma Celia's smiling face. "Surprise inspection," she announced, her voice a cheerful stage whisper that nevertheless earned us a reproving glance from a nearby student. "Grandma Celia." I jumped up, a delighted laugh escaping me as I hugged her tightly. "What are you doing here?" "Just ensuring at least one of my grandchildren is actually attending college," she winked, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Come, let's get some lunch. There's something I need to tell you." Over toasted sandwiches and iced tea at the Copper Kettle Cafe, a charming spot near campus, Grandma Celia dropped another bombshell, her tone as casual as if she were commenting on the spring blossoms outside. "I've had my solicitor rewrite my will," she said, taking a delicate bite of her sandwich. "You, Lyra, are now my sole heir." I nearly choked on my tea. "What? But why?" "Your parents," she continued, her expression serene, "have, by my calculations, already received well over $100,000 from me over the years, ostensibly for your and Orion's benefit. That, I have decided, constitutes their share of my estate." She paused. "I have informed them of my decision. They were less than pleased, but frankly, my dear, their displeasure is no longer my primary concern." "Grandma Celia, I don't need." "It's not about need, Lyra," she interrupted gently. "It's about trust. And it's about recognizing character. I trust you, implicitly, to use whatever I may leave behind with wisdom and integrity. You have navigated immense hardship with a quiet grace and resilience that speaks volumes. That, my dear, is a rare and precious quality." I was speechless, a wave of emotions. Gratitude, shock, a dawning sense of profound responsibility, washing over me. After years of feeling like an invisible footnote in my own family, I was being seen, valued, entrusted. It was almost too much to comprehend. "Thank you," I finally managed, my voice thick with unshed tears. "Don't thank me yet." Grandma Celia's expression grew serious. "Your parents may not accept this gracefully. They might try to pressure you, to manipulate your emotions. Be prepared, Lyra. Stand firm in your own truth." She was right. A week later, my parents appeared at my dormitory room unannounced. Maya, with one insightful glance at their strained faces, and my apprehensive one, muttered something about an urgent library errand and made a swift, discreet exit. "We need to talk, Lyra," Father said, perching awkwardly on the edge of my desk chair while Mother settled onto Maya's neatly made bed, her purse clutched tightly in her lap. I looked at them, these familiar figures who suddenly felt like strangers occupying my small, personal space. Mother appeared thinner, the skin around her eyes shadowed and strained. Father's hair seemed to have acquired more silver threads at the temples. "What is it you want?" I asked, my voice cooler, more detached than I intended. Mother leaned forward, her eyes pleading. "We need you to talk to Grandma Celia, Lyra, about the will. It's not fair." "No." The word was out before I could consciously form it. Simple, unequivocal. "No," Father repeated, a note of disbelief in his voice. "No, hello, how have you been?" Not even a word of understanding for our situation? Just no. Why would I? I crossed my arms, a small act of defiance that nonetheless made me feel a little stronger. Why would I intervene on your behalf? Because we're your parents, Lyra, father said, as if that simple biological fact explained and excused everything. A short, bitter laugh escaped me, surprising even myself. That didn't seem to hold much weight when you were systematically diverting funds meant for my education and well-being. Mother's eyes welled with tears. You don't understand what we've been through with Orion, the stress, the constant worry. No, I don't, I agreed, my voice quiet but firm. Because no one ever chose to share any of that with me. All I knew was that I was struggling to keep my head above water while you were painting pictures of Orion's brilliant academic career. I was hungry, Mother. I was working 2 jobs and still barely managing to survive. You're exaggerating, Lyra, Mother said dismissively, a flicker of the old impatience in her eyes. I'm sure it wasn't quite as dire as you're making it out to be. Something within me, a tightly coiled spring of long-suppressed pain, finally snapped. Not that bad? Let me tell you what not that bad felt like, Mother. It felt like hoping a customer at the library cafe where I sometimes helped out during rush hour would leave behind a half-eaten muffin because I hadn't had a proper meal all day. It felt like wearing the same 3 rotating outfits for nearly 2 years because every spare cent went to rent or textbooks. It felt like sobbing myself to sleep because my essential art tablet broke and I had absolutely no way to replace it, jeopardizing a course I loved. Mother paled visibly, but her expression quickly hardened. Your brother needed our help. He has an illness, an addiction. It's a recognized disease. And what about me? My voice trembled, but I held her gaze. What was I supposed to do? Just wither away quietly in Riverbend while you wove a tapestry of lies for everyone, including yourselves. Father tried a different, softer approach. Lyra, please. We're asking you to consider. Just tell Grandma Celia that you've been managing fine all along. Tell her we've been providing for you adequately. I stared at him, aghast. You want me to lie for you? After everything you've done? After the lies you told me, and Grandma Celia, and everyone else. We're family, Lyra, he said, his voice taking on a pleading tone. Family is supposed to support each other. Family doesn't do what you did to me. I stood up, my body trembling with a mixture of anger and profound sorrow. I lost 15 pounds during my first semester. Maya had to lend me money just so I could eat properly. There were days I was so lightheaded from hunger I could barely concentrate in my lectures. Well, perhaps you should have called us if things were truly that desperate, Father countered, his voice defensive. I did call. I cried, the memory sharp and painful. I did ask for help, right at the beginning, and Mother told me to stop being selfish and get a second job because I was clearly just being lazy and expecting a handout. A tense, heavy silence descended upon the small room. Mother looked away, unable or unwilling to meet my gaze, a silent admission of her words. Orion is your brother, she finally said, her voice a low murmur. He needs us. He's always needed us more. And I don't. My voice cracked, the raw hurt escaping. Or did I simply need you differently? I've always been the quiet one, the afterthought. Orion got the coding camps and the debate trips. I got the it's just a hobby speech. Orion was praised for the slightest effort. I was largely ignored despite working tirelessly. Orion received all your attention, all your resources, all your anxious energy, and yes, it felt like all your love. That's not true, Lyra, Father protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? I challenged, wiping away angry tears with the back of my hand. Be honest, just for once. You chose him over me, time and time again. You allowed me to struggle, to suffer, to believe I was forgotten, while you poured every ounce of your energy and Grandma Celia's money into him. And for what? Has he truly gotten better? Have all those thousands of dollars, all those sacrifices, primarily mine, it turns out, actually fixed him? Their silence was a resounding, damning answer. He's our son, Mother whispered, her face etched with a pain I could almost pity, if my own wasn't so overwhelming. "And I am your daughter," I exclaimed, the words tearing from my throat. "Or had you forgotten that simple fact in your all-consuming focus on him?" Mother began to cry openly then, her shoulders shaking as she covered her face with her hands. Father awkwardly patted her arm, his expression one of weary defeat. "Lyra, please try to understand," he said, his voice heavy. "Orion's issues are complex, deeply ingrained. As his parents, we feel an overwhelming responsibility. We can't just abandon him." I took a deep, steadying breath, trying to anchor myself amidst the storm of emotions. "I do understand that Orion needs help, Father. I truly do. But you chose to help him by actively harming me, by deceiving me, by taking what was meant for my future and my well-being. That was your decision, your choice." Mother looked up, her mascara smudged, her face a mask of desperation. "What are we supposed to do now, Lyra?" Orion is in serious trouble again. He owes a substantial amount of money to some very unsavory individuals. We need Grandma Celia's financial assistance urgently." "That," I said, the words emerging with a surprising, quiet finality, "is no longer my concern." "How can you be so cold, so unfeeling?" Mother asked, her voice rising in disbelief. "He's your brother." "A brother I barely know anymore," I replied, the truth of it settling heavily in my heart. "A brother you consistently, unequivocally, prioritized over me for my entire life." I walked to the door and opened it, the simple action feeling monumental. "I will not be speaking to Grandma Celia about her will. You made your choices, both of you, over many years. Now you must live with the consequences of those choices. You're being incredibly selfish, Lyra." Mother cried, rising to her feet, her voice sharp with the same accusation she'd leveled at me 2 years prior. Those words, the casual cruelty of them, echoing her past dismissal of my genuine need, were the final severance. "Get out," I said, my voice low and shaking, but firm. "Please, just leave. I don't want to see either of you again right now. You made your preferences clear years ago. You chose your favored child. Now you must navigate the repercussions of that enduring partiality." They left, Mother weeping with a dramatic flair that felt oddly performative, Father looking utterly defeated, aged beyond his years. As the door clicked shut behind them, I sank onto my bed, my body trembling as if I'd run a marathon. Maya returned a short while later, her arms laden with library books. She took one look at my pale, tear-streaked face, set the books down with a soft thud, and sat beside me, her presence a silent, comforting anchor. "That bad, huh?" she asked gently. "Worse," I whispered, and then, the words tumbling out in a torrent, I told her everything. She listened patiently, her expression shifting from sympathy to quiet indignation. When I finished, she let out a low whistle. "Wow, Lyra. Your parents are something else. Did they even once, apologize for what they did to you?" "Not a single word of genuine apology," I said, staring up at the bland acoustic tiles of the ceiling. "Just justifications, and then a demand that I convince Grandma Celia to change her will so they could access more money for Orion." "Unbelievable," Maya murmured, squeezing my hand. "So, what are you going to do now?" "Move forward," I said, a surprising sense of certainty blooming in the ravaged landscape of my emotions. "Focus on my studies, keep my weekend job at the library because I actually find a strange solace there and refuse to let them drag me back into their vortex of drama and debt." Over the ensuing weeks, I immersed myself in my coursework with a renewed sense of purpose. The liberation from constant financial duress was transformative. I could purchase required textbooks without agonized deliberation, enjoy 3 nutritious meals a day, and even replace my worn-out sneakers without guilt. Grandma Celia called faithfully every Sunday afternoon, her voice a warm, reassuring presence in my life. We talked about everything and nothing, my classes, the quirky characters at the library, the budding spring flowers in Riverbend. She never once pressured me to reconcile with my parents, simply listened with an open heart when I needed to voice my lingering confusion or sadness, and made me laugh with her wry, witty stories of her own youth. "You know, Lyra," she said during one such call, her voice tinged with a gentle nostalgia, "I was something of a forgotten child myself. My older sister was the celebrated beauty, destined for a brilliant marriage, and my younger brother was the precocious academic prodigy. I was just Celia, the quiet one in the middle, often overlooked. How did you cope with that, Nana?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I carved out my own path, my dear." I could hear the smile in her voice. "I cultivated my own interests, sought out people who valued me for who I was, not for who they wished I would be. Much like you are doing now, Lyra." One crisp spring evening, while I was engrossed in research at the library, my phone vibrated with a text message from Aunt Clara, my mother's sister. "Lyra, have you heard about your parents' house in Mapleton?" A quick, slightly apprehensive call to Grandma Celia filled in the unsettling details. My parents were in the process of selling their home, the house I had grown up in, to settle Orion's latest and most perilous gambling debts. He had, it transpired, become entangled with predatory loan sharks, and the situation had escalated to a dangerous level. "Do you want me to offer them some assistance, Lyra?" Grandma Celia asked, her voice carefully neutral. I considered her question for a long, quiet moment, the image of my childhood home, with its familiar creaks and sunlit rooms, vivid in my mind. "No, Nana," I said finally, the decision settling with a surprising sense of peace. "They made their choices. This is the consequence." 3 months drifted by, marked by the changing seasons in Riverbend and an unbroken silence from my parents. I didn't reach out, and they made no attempt to contact me. Strangely, their absence felt more like a gentle unfurling of relief than a painful loss. The spring semester was in full, vibrant swing, and for the first time in my academic life, I was genuinely thriving. Without the crushing weight of 2 jobs and the ceaseless anxiety about money, I could finally dedicate my mental energy to learning, to exploring ideas, to engaging fully with my education. My GPA climbed from a respectable 3.1 to an impressive 3.8, and my professors began to take notice. "Your analysis in this last paper on Renaissance art shows remarkable insight and depth, Lyra," my art history professor commented after class one afternoon. "Have you ever considered applying for the departmental research assistant position for the summer? I think you'd be an excellent candidate." Previously, such an opportunity would have been an impossible dream, something I would have had to decline immediately due to the demands of my work schedule. Now, a thrill coursed through me. "I would love to apply," I said, a genuine smile lighting up my face. "When is the application due?" That evening, as I was carefully crafting my application, Maya burst into our room, waving a colorful flyer. "Summer solstice camping trip to Eagle's Crest," she announced, her eyes sparkling. "A big group of us from the hiking club are going. You should totally come with us, Lyra. Remember how much you said you wanted to see the mountains?" My initial, ingrained instinct was to demur, the old habits of scarcity and self-denial dying hard. But then I remembered, I didn't have to live that way anymore. I had savings. I had freedom. "You know what, Maya?" I said, a slow grin spreading across my face. "I'm in." Maya's jaw practically dropped. "Seriously?" "No, I don't know if I can afford it, or I really should work more hours at the library." "Nope," I laughed, feeling wonderfully, exhilaratingly light. "I've been carefully saving some of Grandma Celia's support. I can definitely afford a camping trip." "Who are you? And what have you done with the perpetually stressed Lyra I know and love?" Maya teased, playfully throwing a pillow at me. The week before the planned camping trip, I received an unexpected call from Aunt Clara. "Lyra, dear," she said, her voice gentle but serious, "I just wanted to let you know. Your parents finalized the sale of the Mapleton house. They've moved into a small rental apartment on the outskirts of town. They're finding things very difficult, Lyra." The money from the house sale barely covered Orion's outstanding debts. I felt a faint, involuntary twinge of sympathy, a residual echo of familial connection, but I consciously pushed it away. That was their path to take, Aunt Clara. I know, dear. I'm not suggesting you should bail them out. Not at all. She paused, then added, Orion is in an intensive inpatient rehabilitation facility again. It's a very strict, long-term program. Perhaps this time, it will finally make a difference. After we hung up, I sat on my bed for a long time, gazing out at the bustling campus green. I thought about Orion, my enigmatic brother. Despite the profound hurt and disappointment, I found I couldn't summon any real hatred for him. He was, in many ways, a victim of his own compulsive behaviors, certainly, but also of our parents' misguided enabling, their refusal to allow him to face the true consequences of his actions until Tea was almost too late. I called Grandma Celia that evening and recounted my conversation with Aunt Clara. Are you all right, my dear? She asked, her concern palpable even through the phone line. Yes, Nana. I think I truly am, I said, surprised by the depth of my own conviction. I feel a sense of sadness for their situation, for the choices they've made that led them here, but I don't feel responsible for it. Good. Grandma Celia's voice was firm, approving. Because you're not, in any way, responsible for their choices or their current circumstances. You continue to focus on building your own life, Lyra. That is your priority. And that is precisely what I did. The camping trip to Eagle's Crest was everything I had never allowed myself to dream of: crisp mountain air, the scent of pine needles underfoot, breathtaking vistas of rolling hills, and easy laughter shared with new friends around a crackling campfire. I bought a sturdy pair of hiking boots without obsessively comparing prices, shared stories and roasted marshmallows, and even braved a dip in an icy, crystal-clear mountain stream. When we returned to Riverbend, sun-kissed, pleasantly weary, and spiritually refreshed, a letter was waiting for me in my dorm mailbox. I recognized my mother's elegant, familiar handwriting immediately and felt a momentary urge to discard it unopened. But a flicker of curiosity, or perhaps a deeper, more complex emotion, compelled me to slide my finger under the flap. Inside, on a single sheet of plain paper, was a short, carefully worded note. Lyra, we have moved to a smaller apartment. The new address is below, should you ever feel inclined to visit. Orion is in a new treatment program. The doctors there seem to believe he might have a genuine chance this time, provided he fully commits to the process. Your father and I have been doing a great deal of thinking these past few months. We acknowledge that we made mistakes, significant ones. We cannot change the past, but we want you to know that we are proud of the way you are standing on your own 2 feet and making your way in the world. Love, Mom. No explicit apology, no direct acknowledgement of the specific, profound harm they had inflicted, just a vague admission of mistakes and an address I had no immediate intention of visiting. I showed the letter to Maya, who read it with a thoughtful frown and then rolled her eyes with characteristic frankness. That's it? After everything they put you through, that's the best they can do. I tucked the letter into the back of my desk drawer, unsure how I felt about it. Disappointed, certainly, by the lack of true accountability. But also, if I were truly honest with myself, a tiny, reluctant part of me hadn't expected even this much. As the semester drew to a close, I found myself thinking less and less about my parents and Orion. My days were full and engaging, challenging classes, my satisfying weekend shifts at the library, and my new, stimulating role as a research assistant in the art history department. Grandma Celia visited again in late July, coinciding with my 20th birthday. We celebrated with a quiet dinner at a lovely little Italian restaurant and a long walk through Riverbend's historic botanical gardens. So, how are you truly doing, my dear? She asked, as we shared a decadent slice of tiramisu. I'm good, Nana. Really, truly good, I smiled, and the words felt honest and true. I never imagined life could feel this uncomplicated, this full of possibility. This is how it should be for you, Lyra, at your age, she said, reaching across the table to gently squeeze my hand. Your only job right now is to learn, to grow, to explore the world and your own potential within it. I received a letter from Mom, I told her, recounting the brief, impersonal note. Grandma Celia's eyebrows rose slightly. And still no genuine apology, I gather? Just an update on their circumstances and Orion's latest attempt at recovery. Pretty much, I confirmed. And have you considered responding? She asked, her tone neutral, offering no judgment. Not yet, I admitted. Perhaps someday. But I'm not ready. Not now. That is entirely your prerogative, Lyra. Grandma Celia nodded, her understanding a quiet comfort. You take all the time you need. Your healing, your peace of mind, that's what matters. As the final exams of the summer term approached, I dedicated myself to my studies with focused determination. My art history professor had strongly hinted that if I maintained my current academic trajectory, I would be a strong contender for a prestigious summer research stipend, an opportunity that would allow me to delve deeply into a topic I was passionate about. It was a prospect that filled me with a quiet, joyful anticipation, something I never would have dared to imagine for myself just a year earlier. One warm evening, as I was walking back to my dormitory after a long study session in the library, the air fragrant with the scent of late summer roses, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Hello, I answered, a note of caution in my voice. Lyra? A male voice, hesitant, vaguely familiar, yet different somehow. It's Orion. I'm calling from the treatment center. Part of my recovery program involves making direct amends to those I've harmed, where possible. I sank onto a nearby stone bench, the cool granite a stark contrast to the warmth of the evening. I was unsure what to say, what to feel. I know what Mom and Dad did, he continued, his voice low and strained, when I didn't immediately speak. About using your college money, your allowance, for my debts. I wanted to say that I am truly, deeply sorry, Lyra. I didn't fully understand the extent of it at the time, or how much you were suffering because of it, but that doesn't excuse my part in it. It was my addiction, my choices, that created the situation they were trying to manage, however badly. No, I agreed softly, it doesn't excuse it. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. His voice was steadier now, imbued with a sincerity I hadn't heard from him in years. I don't expect it. I needed you to hear it from me. I needed to acknowledge the truth of what happened and to tell you how profoundly sorry I am for the pain and hardship my actions and their consequences caused you. After we ended the call, I sat on that bench for a long time, watching the gentle rhythm of campus life unfold around me. Students strolled by, some laughing with friends, others engrossed in conversation, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the setting sun, the normal, vibrant tapestry of university life, a life I was finally, fully, able to embrace. I thought about Orion's call, the unexpected rawness of his apology. It was the first truly genuine expression of remorse I had received from anyone in my immediate family. I didn't know if his recovery would last this time, if he would finally find a path out of the destructive cycle that had consumed him for so long. I didn't know if my parents would ever fully comprehend the depth of the wounds their choices had inflicted, or if our fractured family could ever truly mend. But as the first stars began to prick the darkening sky above Riverbend, a profound sense of peace settled over me. For the first time, I realized that it didn't entirely matter. My life, my happiness, my future were no longer defined by their choices, their struggles, or their approval. I had my own path now, a path illuminated by Grandma Celia's unwavering love and support, by Maya's steadfast friendship, and by my own burgeoning strength and self-respect. It was a path rich with opportunities, with learning, with the quiet joy of self-discovery, a future whose boundaries were mine alone to define. Whatever lay ahead with my family, whatever twists and turns their lives might take, I knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within my soul, that I would be okay. I was already more than okay. I was, finally, wonderfully, resiliently, Lyra.